Hey squad, welcome back. This is part 2 of my Logic Pro Session Players deep dive, and in this one we're going to be focusing primarily on the harmony section. So let's dive straight in. So in part 1 we focused on the Logic Pro Session Players rhythm section, and that included the session drummer, the session percussionist, as well as the session bass player. However, in this one we're going to be focusing more on the session keyboard player. So we're back at our track create panel, and this time we're selecting keyboard. Over here we're going to go for broken chords for this one, so let's select that. And I'm going to hit create. Now by default, Logic's going to insert a piano sound for our keyboard. However, you are not restricted to just pianos. We can choose any type of keyboard sound we want to use and then go ahead and make alterations according to what we're looking for. And that's exactly what I've done just here. So let's undo this last creation. So previously I created a new session keyboard player track and I've just inserted the Logic Vintage Electric Piano and I've gone with the Deluxe Classic preset. So let's have a quick listen to what we've got just playing the electric piano. It's that simple. Of course, I've made adjustments to the playing style to suit what's going on with the rest of the production. Also, I'm bearing in mind that I'm going to have 2 more keyboard players, the Studio Grand as well as a synth later on. So I don't want my electric piano doing too much. As you can see down here, I've got sustain only on the left hand. And in terms of movement on the right hand, I'm going for minimal range. I don't want too much happening over here. I've set it up to play full chords on the right hand and root only on the left hand. And in terms of which rhythm to follow, I've told it to follow the chord track. I've also adjusted the hand position on the keyboard. The right hand was further up the keyboard range. I've actually pulled it down so we're playing more middle and lower tone notes. Let's actually hear what difference that makes. Let's pull this up like so. And as you can see, the pattern here changes in this region. Okay, and let's undo that. Okay, so it actually makes a difference. And so you can experiment with the hand positioning of either hand, and you can decide on what type of chord structure and arrangement you have for each of the hands. You can also adjust the fill complexity and amount, and that's how much of the individual notes you're going to get played in between chords. Let's increase the fill to say 50% and the fill complexity to 50% as well. And we're going to increase the movement to about medium range. Let's try that. Again, you'll adjust these things to taste. So I'm just going to undo these changes and let's move on. I've gone for a slightly more laid back feel and I've got a fair bit of humanization going on there. I've taken out all of the grace notes on this section and the complexity and intensity are fairly standard. So let's hear how the grace notes impact what's going on melodically within the chords. I've set the grace notes to 50%. I've also made a slight adjustment to the hand positions and I've gone for a medium movement range right here. So let's have a quick listen. Very nice. We're using the Ageless Story as the overall playing style. So let's hear how this sounds with the drums and the bass. Right, now there's one thing that just troubles me around here. When we go from the C sus4 into the C major right at the end. Have another listen. There's a note there that troubles me. Bearing in mind, this is not a perfect science. This new approach to production is still in its infancy, and over time, these anomalies will be ironed out. One way I've found to resolve issues with notes that seem to fall out of scale is by coming to a section like here, click here, and I'm going to split just here. Logic will reprogram the note selection and give us something slightly different. Have a listen. So much better. Let's undo that and compare. Once again with the split. So much better. So right now I want to bring in some of my additional guest players, the guitar and the sax. And I want to have a quick listen before we bring in the other keyboardists, the grand piano player and the synth player. Okay, so far we've employed the services of 4 of Logic's session players, and we're going to bring our 5th one in. And this one here is our grand piano player. Of course, this one I had prepared from earlier, but to get there, once again, we create a new track. We select keyboard player, and for the player style, I went for the freely style. And like I said before, because we have 3 different keyboard players, we don't want them all doing the same thing, nor do we want them playing at odds with each other. So as you would remember, besides the fact that the first keyboard player is playing an electric piano, we're playing on the Age of the Story preset with a left and right hand position and settings that aren't doing too much. For the grand piano, however, of course, we're on the freely setting right here. The preset we've gone for is calm and steady. Now for hand position, I've gone for a wider spread between the hands here, and I've got grace notes at 16%. I'm following the chords as well as the drummer and using pattern 1 just here as well. Okay, so let's just have a quick listen to the piano on its own. That's so lovely. Now let's have a listen with these 2 keyboard players playing at the same time. To create even more separation, I'm panning the grand piano to the right and the electric piano more to the left. I've also got all of my keyboards going through to a fantastic plugin by Waves, the Waves Maserati HMX, which processes keyboard parts in a really beautiful way. Have a listen to the keys where the HMX is bypassed and then enabled, and you hear the difference. It just adds that dreaminess to keyboards like this. Anyway, we've covered the stuff down here. One thing we haven't covered yet is the manual option when it comes to the keyboards. This, of course, is to do with the rhythm that the keyboard player plays this part. So as it says here, click a step to create a manual pattern. So if we click here on the first step, we now get the length option, and we can choose between 1 to 4 bars, or we can operate in steps. Let's leave it at 1 bar, and let's listen to what impact this has on the rhythm. As you can hear, the amount of movement within each bar is now reduced. Let's click here and let's hear what happens now. Okay, and how about if we click here and then here? Okay, so what it is, this display is showing 16 steps in a bar. So let's change the pattern right here to this. Now that doesn't work one bit. So it's important that if you're going to be using the manual programming section, you have a basic idea of step programming. Of course, there's no harm at all in experimenting with this section, but you do need a bit of patience to try and find the right rhythmic pattern that works with the overall piece. Now, one last thing before we move on is if we were to take this all off, switch these all out like so, and we went back to main, we clicked here, you'd see that manual pattern is still selected. So what we need to do is come back up here and choose the original pattern that we're using, pattern 1, and now you'll see that manual pattern is switched off. Now, the final thing I want to look at in relation to the piano is the actual piano sound. So if we click right here, we'll see that we are using the Studio Grand with one mic. We have a number of different pianos we can choose from. And of course, you can try out the different ones to see which one fits what you're working on. You can also make adjustments to these parameters along here to maintain that sort of realistic feel. Now, one last thing when you're playing an electric piano and a piano, you don't want all of the chords to be landing exactly precisely at the same time. So what you might want to do is maybe on the piano, you go into details and have more of a humanized setting where the playing is not going to be as precise, and maybe less so on the electric piano. So there's more contrast and variation between the two sections. You can also adjust the feel by maybe setting the electric piano to a bit more pull and setting the grand piano maybe to a slight push. So finally, let's move on to our synth player. So now we're going to insert our final keyboard player, and we come over here to keyboard player style and click here, and at the bottom we've got simple pad. Let's put that one in and create. And now, as you can see over here, we've got the Logic Retro Synth. If we click that, this is our synth that will generate the pad. And over here is where we've got all of the presets associated with the retro synth. Now, if we come here and click on preset, we can select the different chord preset that we want to use here. And here we can determine how the chords are played using this pad sound. Although the retro synth has been selected here, Logic has lots of different synths. If you haven't seen my video on the range of synths that exist in Logic, make sure you check that video out. So that's exactly what I did up here for my synth part. I went for the ES2 synth and I went for Breathy Vox. So let's get rid of this one here, this new one. I'm going to solo and have a listen to what's happening. Now, of course, we can adjust a number of things down here. The intensity of the playing, the hand position. These are the voicing options for the left hand, and these are the voicing options for the right hand. Because we're generally dealing with pad sounds, we can adjust the attack or delay of the note start. And we can also adjust the note length using this control right here. And just like all of the other session players, there's a swing value adjustment knob just there. And we can switch between 8th and 16th note patterns. There's no additional rhythm follow options just here. However, under chord, we can select follow global chord track. And of course, the final thing we want to do here is make sure we achieve a good blend between all three keyboard players. So I'm going to take the volume all the way off on the pad and just ease it in to achieve the blend I'm looking for. Okay, so that's the pad section. So the final thing I want to talk about is how we achieve great transitions from one section to another. Typically, when we move between verses, choruses, and bridge sections, and I'll show you that next. Before I demonstrate the very last part of this video, let me just show you this real quick. Over here on my master bus, I've got this thing called Studio Verse, and it's by Waves Audio. This is a rack of plugins that are currently sitting on my master bus, all contained within this really neat, tidy unit. The plugins consist of Vintage Exciter, the Abbey Road Vinyl Processor, Abbey Road J37 Reel-to-Reel, the Magma BB Tubes Valve Processor, Abbey Road TG Mastering Chain, and finally the L3 Ultra Maximizer. Now, I have done a video on the Studio Verse instruments and Studio Verse audio effects plugins. Really worth checking it out because you may well find it really beneficial to be able to rack together and control these plugins, as well as the ability to connect to a massive community and try out different chains from different professionals. Now, I've got a number of chains. If you type Deuce and Deuce MTTC, click there, you'll see a number of my chains here, which you can try out. The one I'm using today is the Warm Fusion Master. Definitely worth looking into. Now let's do a quick A/B test to demonstrate how powerful this is in terms of the overall sonic characteristics of our mix. Now this is with Studio Verse audio effects switched on. A massive difference in what we are hearing, and that's to do with the fact that we're using some fantastic plugins and we're able to stack them in a way that will give us excellent results. So definitely check this one out. I'll have links to all of the plugins used in the description where you can go and try them out completely free of charge, and if you think it's going to benefit you, you can take the next step. Anyway, let's move forward. Now, one of the most powerful features in the Logic Pro Session Player's setup is your ability to build tension and release using the features available right here in each of these regions. So we've got two 8-bar sections of music. The chord progression is relatively the same, but we want to build into the second 8 bars starting from here. Now, the first thing I'll do is open up Logic's drummer. And what I'm going to do is split right here between bars 8 and 9. And now I'm going to add a fill amount, let's say about 40%. First of all, let's have a listen to how we transition between the two sections. Okay, things just flow straight in. Now that we've split at bar 8 on the drums, I'm going to take the fill amount up to about 40%. And let's have a listen now. Okay, already we're hearing the drum fill is indicating that we are moving forward to something else. We're building towards something else. Again, on the drums, I'm going to come over to the next 8 bars. I'm going to add some fill here. Let's go up to maybe about 30%. So we're going to get some more fills in between here because I want this section to be a bit more dynamic. I'm also going to increase the complexity of the section so the drum pattern becomes a little bit more complex than this first section here. So let's listen once again. Okay, you can hear the hi-hats are doing more over here. One thing I could do on this section is go to details and then maybe choose a slightly different hi-hat setting. Let's try half closed. You see these very simple nuances tells the brain that there's something different between these two sections, and it's very subtle, but that's what a drummer would generally do as we build up from one section to the next. So coming down here to the percussionists as well. At the moment, we've got a fill amount here. I'm going to do the exactly same thing and split at bar 8. And here I'm going to increase the fill to about 30%. Then I'm going to come over here to the next 8 bars. And I'm going to increase the intensity and the complexity of the actual playing style. So as you can see visually, there's a difference between this section and this. There's more activity going on here. So let's have a listen now. You'll notice that on these two previous sections, the triangle is not included, but on this one, we've got the triangle inserted right here. So let's have a listen to what that sounds like. Now, if I go to details here, I can adjust the complexity range for each of the individual parts currently playing. And I can add a bit more variation as well. Maybe increase the dynamics slightly. Let's have a listen. So that's the drums and percussion. So let's hear what the bass is doing as we transition between the two sections. Okay, that's cool. Let's try the same principle just here. We're not splitting on bar 8. We're going to split right here where the C sus4 chord is introduced. There. And now we're going to increase the fill amount. Let's try 40%. Okay, and let's have a listen to what that does. Again, you can explore and experiment with this as much as you like. You can maybe try shorter notes like so, and then increase the notes in the melody like so. As you can see, more notes are appearing. Let's try that one more time. Well, that's it for this video. It's a long one, but I really do hope I've brought you value and I've been able to unravel and reveal some of the fantastic features that we have right here in front of us in the Logic session players. If you found value in the video, remember to give the video a like, subscribe to me on YouTube, and stick with me on Patreon because I'll be bringing you a whole lot more real soon. Until next time, I'm Deuce, I'm out. Peace.